Hello, everybody. Welcome to our review of and recap of episode 5 of WandaVision. And oh boy, we got a lot to talk about. This was insane. This is probably my favorite episode yet. I'm super excited to talk about it. Be sure, if you are watching, to go to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe, hit that bell, hit that like button. It really does help a lot. So thank you very much. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on my co-host to talk about this insane episode of WandaVision. First off, we're going to bring in Thomas. Thomas, how you doing, buddy?
What's up? Oh, dude, I am pumped to talk about everything that has happened in the world of Westview and New Jersey. Really, I like that we're highlighting New Jersey.
Yes. Everything is legal in New Jersey. So, all right, and we're also bringing in Eric. Eric, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm right.
All right, let's bring it to this view. Okay. Whew, we're gonna get into it. Can I link the YouTube channel in the description? Just go to our YouTube channel, Don. But yes, I will. While I do that, I'm gonna take a second to do that. We are gonna recap the whole episode, but everybody, spoilers, like out the gate, spoilers, because before we go back to the beginning,
Spoilers.
we have to talk about the end because it's just too big not to, because it changes everything.
I thought you were gonna
like, seriously, if you have not watched this episode, do not
look away.
Do not watch this. Go away if you have not watched, because this is big. I have a big spoiler warning right at the bottom of the screen there. That will be there through the entire thing. Do not watch this because we're about to talk about some major stuff. So
major stuff.
Quicksilver from the Fox X-Men cinematic universe just showed up. As far as we know, from what we know, maybe it's not actually him, but the actor who played him, Evan Peters, has appeared at the end of this episode. So you two, talk about that real quick while I set this.
Right. So as like I said, when we were introduced to the character of Geraldine, and then as we now know, Monica Rambeau, like I was always hesitant. I was like, in the world of WandaVision, we don't know that it's Maria or Monica Rambeau. We know that from the cast list. And I think, announcing cast lists and stuff and it all being on IMDb is like, it's a little bit of new spoiler territory. Cause like, you could see that Evan Peters was cast if you looked in the right places. What he's doing
doesn't necessarily mean anything though, because he could have been playing another role.
I mean, he could be, but it's such an iconic.
He could be now. We don't know what the rules of this place are. It could be whoever the actual big bad is.
Right. The only evidence we have to suggest that he is playing Pietro Maximoff is that he refers to Wanda as his sister, and we're getting that like visual recognition, knowing that he's played the same character in a different studio property that is now property of Marvel.
Right. So the textual evidence that we have is that the Fox Quicksilver just showed up in the MCU, which blows my mind.
Right.
And I knew it was coming from all the rumors.
Sure. If Disney didn't own Fox, I would be more likely to think, okay, maybe he's playing a new character. Mm-hmm. Right. And we're doing a little bit of just like a nod that's going to be a slight bait and switch, but it'll be a bait and switch we're all okay with because he's going to be playing a new character in the MCU.
Yeah, like an homage for the fans.
Right. Like what we missed out on in Endgame with Tony Stark and Doctor Strange. No shit, Sherlock. Like,
I wish they had done that.
We could have done that. The audience would have loved it, and it would have been for the audience, and But like I am in the camp of this is the new MCU Pietro Maximoff in some caliber. Whether or not he is also the Fox Quicksilver, that is, I think, what remains to be seen.
Right.
But we are led to believe that from everything that we as the audience know they are leading us to believe that he showed up. And just even the fact that it is that version has a lot of major implications, I think, in terms of them setting up the multiverse of madness. Spider-Man home again. I don't know what they're going to call it. No, Spider-Man. I'm still home. Will be the third one.
Working from home.
Yeah, the third one. So Don here said, Darcy's quote, did Wanda just recast, we're spoilers here, so did Wanda just recast Pietro? One of my favorite lines from the episode. Me too, Don, me too. I love that because it they're telling us that this is supposed to be Pietro and it is Evan Peters from the
right. All the signs definitely point to that because he's referring to himself as her brother. Like he's got the silver hair. Mm-hmm. Darcy recognized that he was supposed to be Pietro within the reality of the sitcom universe, at least.
Yeah, because
it's like, who's this guy?
Right, but if Mephisto is still in play, maybe it's Mephisto. Like maybe it's somebody posing as that. To try and keep her in the thing. Because after this episode, I'm now starting to waver on whether or not Wanda is actually behind all of this. So. She definitely has control over it, but I think this is to someone else's benefit. Let's rewind, go back to the beginning of the episode, do our usual recap as we do. So let me bring up my thing here. 1 second. I gotta make a little room here on my desktop. So I split it up into 9 scenes today. Because there were kind of 9 distinctive scenes, I think, that kind of take us through this episode. So, scene 1, cold open. Kids, they grow up so fast. So we are now in the 80s. We can tell by the decor, and it's very much family ties. Mm-hmm. To me is the number one influence of this episode. Don just lolled at your rewind, by the way, Eric.
Thank you.
The kids won't shut up. They keep crying. They're trying to calm them down. Wanda says something funny about like, "Oh, if you stop crying, you'll be my favorite twin." And meanwhile, Vision is off with the other one reading Charles Darwin, which I feel like is a little nod towards X-Men. So that's my thought there. I believe that specific book talks about the evolution of man and how that will be the destruction of man. So I think that's probably a nod to mutant kind. I don't know.
That's possible. Yeah.
This is one of those shows where you take everything like, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? Let me put it under a microscope, And then we get Agnes, or no, her name's not Agnes. No, yeah, Agnes.
Yeah, it is Agnes.
I was going to say, no, it's Agatha. No, that's who we think she is. So Agnes appears right when they need somebody. Vision clocks it. We see him visibly clock it. And she's trying to help out. Meanwhile, Vision's like, wavering on whether or not she should be helping. And he breaks the flow of what the scene is supposed to be. And Agnes goes, "Oh, should I take it from the top? Should we do it again? It was right. I'm supposed to take the babies, right? Like, what do you want me to do, Wanda?" And she's like, and Wanda's like, "What? No, nothing. What? I don't know what you're talking about." And
yeah, she's reacting like an actor in that moment, which I thought was
I love. And then Vision's like, obviously something is wrong. And then all that gets distracted because all of the hijinks happening with Agnes we all get distracted from that because the twins have aged themselves up to 5 years old. That's our cold open. Eric, what are your thoughts about that cold open?
Well, one thing that I noticed immediately when the twins aged up a few years is that Billy was wearing an outfit with a rainbow on it, and the character he's based on from the comics is gay. So I think you're right that the show is dropping little hints and homages to things that may come into play later on. So yeah, like I was very hooked by this cold open. I was just, especially the moment when Agnes breaks character, because previously when we've seen them break character, it feels like they're prisoners, that like they're trying to escape from Wanda's control. Agnes seemed like she was totally like along for the ride, and it's like, okay, Wanda, should I take that again? Go from the top. Where are we starting from? It's like she's reacting like she knows she has a part to play, and she's fine with that. But that could just be mind control still.
So I think that she knew she had a part to play, but I felt that it was more fear. I read that more as fear. So it's interesting that you read that is her kind of acquiescing to like the whole premise and everything.
Yeah, it didn't. I don't know. I'd have to see the scene again. It didn't feel immediately like fear to me. It felt like Agnes knows more than she's letting on, and may be complicit in what's happening. Because she didn't react strangely when the children aged up suddenly to 5 years old. Like she didn't like freak out. She didn't have like a crazy sitcom reaction. She was just totally fine with it.
And that's like, throughout the entire episode. In fact, she just puts a button on it. Like, kids can't control them, which I think is a hint as well, because Wanda did try to use magic to shut them up, and it didn't work. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, so I feel like, at least to me, like that scene was playing like Agnes is not who we think she is, and may know more about what's happening than some of the other people within Westview. But I don't know. That was just kind of my initial gut reaction to it.
Yeah. Thomas, what about you, sir?
I fully agree with Eric that Agnes he has more of a handle on this than anyone else in the world. I think Agnes is either like the lieutenant or the big bad in some respect, because from a like actor and scene standpoint, what Vision says when he's like, don't touch the babies, is super typical of like of parents, right? Like, when's the last time, did you wash your hands? Have you ever, that's typical parent reaction. So her breaking to me was the weird thing, not Vision like trying to stop her. I thought that seemed very much like Wanda could have scripted it. Yeah. I get that that's what maybe that's what they were going for, and it might just be the way my brain is working. So I felt that break was weird, and it wasn't from Vision that it was weird. It was from Agnes that it was strange. True that she does act like an actor and do all that. The kids aging themselves up, I guess I didn't understand until later when they aged themselves from 5 to 10 that the twins did it. I thought it was a construct of like another subconscious construct of Wanda's going like, oh, I can't actually handle them as babies because she's had no time to prepare, right?
I thought the same thing. Yeah.
She wants the ideal life.
The pregnancy happened so fast as well. I thought it was just, and we've been jumping from decade to decade with each episode. So I didn't realize it was the twins doing it themselves either.
Right. Which even now, as I kind of work it out, I'm not entirely sure it is the twins doing it, right? Like, I still think Wanda is super in control. And if we're really going deep House of M, like, the twins aren't real. Like, and we still don't know if the twins are, like, constructs of Wanda's that she's gotten so powerful that she can create life, or...
I disagree. I think they are real. I think they have... Right. I think she can create... I think she can actually mold reality.
That's fair. And I would love to agree with you. I just don't have I don't have any evidence for it yet.
I feel like they did drop a few hints toward that. I don't think it's 100% yet, but I think that it is a very strong possibility that they are real. I also think that if they are real, that they are definitely setting up to do Young Avengers with Kamala Khan being the leader of the Young Avengers. Like, that's my wild speculation for where that particular part of this is going to head.
I think they've definitely got the ability to do it. I don't know if it's in their plan yet, but I think they're leaving themselves the option. Because I think they first need to see if the Miss Marvel show is going to be a success.
It will be.
Well, I think they're laying the groundwork for it if they don't have immediate plans for it, because we've seen a lot of younger characters being introduced to the MCU. We have Cassie Lang in the Ant-Man movies that's been aged up now because of the time jump in Endgame. You know,
And we
so like they're setting up the possibility for the Young Avengers and kind of testing
Feige
the waters,
plays
I
10
think.
steps ahead, and as long as everything stays popular, as long as nothing tanks, I think that's the course that they're on. Let's move on to the theme song. So for this segment, I for the theme song segment, I call it the Family Ties That Bind, because this is just a straight up rip off of Family Ties, and I'm here for it. I love the brush, the paintbrush. That's what they do on Family Ties. You have the picture, and it paints in the picture of the Keaton family, but you get it with Wanda's magic controlling the brush, which I think is another hint that perhaps Wanda is controlling all of this. I actually found the lyrics for it because I think that they're very interesting in terms of what's going on in Wanda's head. You wander the world with a vision of what life could be, but then years come and teach you to just wait and see. Forces may try to pull us apart, but nothing can faze me if you're in my heart. Crossing our fingers, singing a song, we're making it up as we go along. Through the highs and lows, we'll be right, we'll be wrong. We're making it up as we go along. And there will be days we won't know which way to go, but we'll take it higher. You're all I desire. When the going gets tough, when push comes to shove, we're making it up because we got love. And then we got love repeats 3 times, and baby, we got WandaVision. So I think that's a very, the facade feels like it's breaking even within the lyrics of this song. We're seeing her this is just what she wants so badly, is just to be with Vision. We see the desperation starting to leak through a lot of stuff. We see all the cracks forming. I think that's very, very interesting. Any quick thoughts on that?
I think we're past cracks forming.
Yeah.
I think water is coming through the dam.
Mm-hmm,
I think cracks forming was like episode 3. Honestly, I think that was cracks forming.
Mm-hmm.
I think now stuff is pouring through, and that's what this song is saying. Right? We're not. I don't even think it's subtle anymore. Vision, phase, making it up as we go along. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think they are just telling us that Wanda is losing control of everything, and we're gonna see why, like in the meta sense, why she's losing control when we get to the death of the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's when we get like that story of why television is fake. Right?
Yeah.
Like the meta reason of why we use TV to tell stories about life, but it is not life. Even, reality television is not life. It is a facade. It is a facsimile, but it is not real. And in that moment with the dead dog, Wanda has to straight up wrestle with it right in front of her children.
Mm-hmm. So let's put a pin in that, because I think that's very important. I do want to get into that. So let's talk about that when we get to the death of the dog scene. Eric, any quick thoughts on those lyrics before we move on to the next scene?
Just echoing what Thomas said, that those particular words definitely stood out to me when you were reading it. Obviously, vision, that's pretty obvious, but phase, connecting to Vision's powers to phase through solid objects. And obviously the emphasis on making it up as we go along. Like, Wanda doesn't really know what she's doing, but she's trying to hold this world together. So like, I would agree with you that there's definitely significance to those opening lyrics.
Yep. So coming out of the theme song, we go to the next scene 2, Team Monica assemble. So we kind of see, because for me, what is happening is that, and it was something I think that was lacking in the first few episodes, and we now have it in episode 4 and 5. The show didn't have a protagonist, and I wonder if that was kind of part of people's problem with, because I know some people were like waiting for the show to get started, and I think they were looking for like, okay, well, who's the hero I'm supposed to root for? And so now I think we firmly established that like Monica is our protagonist, and so now we see what's going on with her. We're now hopping back and forth within the sitcom reality to the actual world. Monica is getting checked. Jimmy and Darcy, Dr. Darcy, if you please, come in, and Darcy and Monica get to meet for the first time. When Monica tries to introduce herself, she's like, "Oh, I'm a big fan," which I love because she's a fan of the sitcom. So she's like, "Oh, I've seen you on the TV. It's so nice to meet you." I love that little tidbit.
Oh, is that what that was? I thought it was her work with Sword. I thought it was.
I don't think Darcy's. There's nothing that tells me that she's familiar with the work with Sword, but she did say like she's invested in the show, and so it's like meeting somebody on a TV show that you're a fan of. I thought that's what that was supposed to represent.
I mean, it probably could be, but me immediately was like, no, you were like the head of Sword before you disappeared. So like, big fan.
Well, no, Mom was head of Sword.
Yeah, because I initially had your reaction, Thomas, but like the more I think about it, that doesn't really make sense because Sword is supposed to be this like clandestine secret organization, and like I don't feel like Darcy would be privy to much knowledge about it.
It's supposed to be clandestine to the layperson, but like Darcy was there for Thor, and like as soon as you're a member of the world, like S.H.I.E.L.D. is no longer a secret, and I don't think Sword would be either. But
Correct.
That's just how
I definitely think it is open to interpretation for sure. So they talk for a little bit. There's a scan that's done, and they're like, "Oh, we have to do the scan again because we don't see anything on the scan."
Maui, with this format, you're super out of frame.
Oh, yes. We see like there's something wrong with the scan. They can't get they didn't get a proper scan on her, and she's like, "Oh no, we're done here." I think the Darcy Monica definitely has her powers. I think Monica has her powers already.
My thought is that it's not Monica.
Ooh.
My initial thought was like it is somebody pretending to be Monica. Like I know we saw her get thrown out, but like somehow in the throwing out process, it's not Monica. Because the thing was it's blank. And I don't know what they were doing as a scan. Like, I don't know if that was like a portable MRI, if it was an X-ray. Like, I don't know. I couldn't tell. And even like rewinding, I was like, I'm not sure. But when she was like,
my read on it was that her light powers messed up the scan. And so she was like, oh, no, we're done because she doesn't want them to look deeper into her and see that she has abilities because of the Sokovia Accord. That was my read. I don't know.
I mean, could be. I do not have an answer in the slightest for what it was, because then later in like the briefing, she's acting very much like Monica. And usually when you are like impersonating somebody, your tells are in like fiction, your tells are a lot bigger. Yeah. In terms of like, because you don't, very rarely do you have both like a shapeshifter or whatever who has both the physical image and the memory. Like even if she was like a Skrull, like they don't have all of the information. But in this case, it was Monica. Like you could clearly see her feelings about how you treat people of different nations and their stories when she's hearing about the Maximovs and whatever. Right. Like that was I thought that was very genuine. So I don't know, but you're right. There's something up with Monica, and would it be awesome if it was her powers? Absolutely.
Yeah. And that leads us right into that meeting where they're kind of going over the information that they have now. The director of Sword is doing that thing that government people do, and it's like, oh, she's a terrorist, we're take her out if we get the chance. And Monica's the one who's saying like, no, she's scared and she's filled with grief, and so that was very interesting.
Even Jimmy is like, or not, is that his first name?
Yeah, Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy Woo. Yeah,
he's just like, I don't like to speak ill of people.
They called him a dick.
I guess that's cool, Jimmy. But like, the proof is right there. It's like she was radicalized. No, like a bomb fell on her house. Like it's a pretty natural response to be a little mad at the people who shot the bomb.
But then once again, Lagos comes up, right? You know, the thing that set off all the Civil War, right, comes up. Like all, you know, her past, you know, still haunts her, which I love. Eric, any quick thoughts on that? We're like half an hour in, we're only like partway through. There's so much happens in this episode. So
just real quick, I want to say that I would like to introduce a third option with what was going on with Monica's scan, which is that maybe she has her powers, but she doesn't know it yet. Because I didn't get the sense she was trying to like cover something up. I'm wondering if maybe Wanda has bestowed her powers on her, because that scene in the briefing also brought attention to the fact that both Wanda and Captain Marvel drew their powers from an Infinity Stone. So it's quite possible a portion of that power may have gone into Monica.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, that is potentially. And they do talk about that a little bit more in a later scene. In scene 4, they mention Captain Marvel, so we'll get to that.
So I'm jumping ahead. Sorry, I wasn't sure where we were at.
Well, there's a few different scenes with them, so it does get a bit confusing. But yeah, that's scene 4.
Yeah, so. We're in scene 3 now.
Scene 3 we're at now, and scene three will be brief. Basically, the kids have found a dog. I don't know where this dog came from. Did they make the dog? Did Monica?
Wanda like doing the tropes, because that's a super common find the pet, hide it thing, particularly for Family Ties, Full House sort of era stuff. And then now we've got Vision coming in and like calling everything out as it's happening.
Right, and he's like, "Oh, and here comes Agnes," and then right on cue she walks through the door with like a dog house for the dog. And
that was the other reason I was thinking that Agnes knows more than she's letting on, because in each episode Agnes has been there like with perfect timing, like to move the plot along or to help Wanda with some sort of crisis, and that either could be sitcom physics at work or it could be that she knows what's happening.
Right. Either she has a heightened knowledge of what's going on, or Wanda, since she's the next door neighbor, Wanda is making her always move the plot along. She's like, "Oh, I can always just have Agnes come in because that's her function."
I think it's both. I think because we now know that like Wanda is in their heads from both Monica and from our buddy, the guy at the computer place. We're gonna get to him.
I can't remember his name.
Sorry. I can't remember his name either. I'll look it up, but yeah.
We're about to get this information that like Wanda is literally in their heads with it. So I think even if Agnes is more knowledgeable about what's happening, she knows that like Wanda sends these unconscious for Wanda, conscious for the recipient messages, right? Or it's, what do they call it? Reverse. Or Douglas Adams called it reverse temporal engineering, right? Go back in time and get the thing that you need that before you know you're gonna need it, right?
Yes.
So that's like what Wanda's doing. That's the rewriting of reality, so that Agnes was always on her way to bring the doghouse. But Agnes is aware of it enough to play into it when it doesn't go right with Vision. And this is where the boys seemingly age themselves up.
Right, because they're like, "Oh, can we keep them?" Vision's like, "No, this is friggin' weird, and we're not keeping any dogs," and blah, blah, blah. And then so Wanda's like, "Oh, boys, we're not going to keep, and can't have dogs until you're 10. And here's why I think that the boys are behind it. When she says that, the boys look at each other and they go, "Okay." They seem to have conscious control over it, which is interesting. Yes, you are correct, Don. The computer guy's name is Norm.
Norm.
There we go.
Very, very famous sitcom name as well.
Name is Norm Hull, because he's just a normal guy.
Mm-hmm.
Family Guy.
Yeah. So so interesting red flag there. Yeah. Let's move on, because there's so much to go through in this episode. Not a lot of time. Scene 4, which I call basically a Marvel subreddit conversation. We get Darcy and Jimmy and Monica talking about, like, they're very much analogs for us, right?
Yeah,
this was the scene I was thinking of.
Talking about who's the strongest, Marvel superhero, and they're like, "Oh yeah, but Wanda could have taken out Thanos if he hadn't called down that strike." And they're like, what about Captain Marvel? And then you get a very interesting like look from Monica that makes me wonder, like, is she on good terms with
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because Carol wasn't there
Carol?
when Maria got diagnosed.
Mm.
She never showed up.
Oh, I lost audio.
What?
Weird.
Uh-oh. We're still here.
Yep, we're here. We'll talk about nothing.
Talk amongst yourselves.
I lost audio, guys.
Um,
All right.
Okay.
Well, while Maui analyzes his anomaly.
I just took out my headphones. It was the Jones anomaly.
Okay.
Yeah, my headphones just went.
Definitely. I definitely think Carol was off being a superhero in the galaxy and wasn't there when Maria got diagnosed and like never showed up. Or if she did, it was like for 2 seconds, and Monica's mad because I think besides Monica, like I don't think there's ever been another partner for Maria. Like whether or not we're talking romantic relationships between her and Carol, there's never been anybody else for Monica and Maria. And the fact that Carol wasn't there when Monica needed help, or when Maria needed help, Monica is mad about that.
Yeah, I definitely could see that.
I think that makes better television or a better story if she was just worshiping Captain Marvel and whatever and just wanted to be great about her. I don't know if Captain Marvel 2 is going to have such an interesting an interesting plot line if Carol can just come home and everything's hunky-dory.
Very true. Yeah, that would not surprise me at all if that's the direction they're going with it. Of course, there is also the possibility that if Monica does have her powers, they may have come from Captain Marvel if their relationship isn't as shaky as you're assuming.
Right. I think those were just little crumbs to get us interested about what's going to happen in Captain, because we know she's going to be in Captain Marvel too. I think we'll get our answers there for sure. It was very, very interesting though. But they're kind of going through that, and that's also, I believe, the scene where they figure out that it is real, right? Because then she's like, wait a second. And she goes to her outfit, her 70s outfit, and shoots it with her gun, but it doesn't pierce the outfit because it's made from the Kevlar from her sword outfit. And so they're like, no, she's actually like rewriting reality. She's like rearranging things the way she wants them. It's not like light constructs or anything like that.
Right, which as an audience member, we've seen now with the drone into the helicopter, with the guy into the beekeeper suit, and the harness is tethered into the jump rope. We just now somebody like scanned it to prove molecularly that's what it is. Which I just believed, like always. I was like, everything that we're seeing is real.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can touch it, you can punch it, it'll bleed. If you cut it, it'll bleed.
But it's also permanent. It seems it doesn't seem to like revert, which is interesting. And
absolutely, that's the world I.
And so
I feel like. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I feel like all of us maybe were just assuming everything was real because we're used to the way Scarlet Witch's powers work in the comics, where she actually can manipulate reality. Mm-hmm. Within the movies, we haven't seen that to as great an extent, which I think we were talking about last week, where like mostly she's been using like mind control and telekinesis. And that's in that scene in the briefing, that's how they defined Wanda's powers.
Right.
So it seems like the greater like government and world at large does not know the full extent of what she's capable of.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They never showed the full extent of her powers previously.
Right. I don't think until this point Wanda knew.
Right.
I don't, I think whatever the catalyst for her. Oh, because we totally skipped over her breaking Vision's body out.
That was in the.
Oh yes, that was in the
security footage.
Right. Whatever the catalyst for that event is like something is where Wanda unlocks all of her powers.
Right. Absolutely. I'll be right back. Talk about that scene real quick.
Okay,
catalyst, he says, as my cat wanders into the frame.
So the director of Sword reveals to us that 9 days prior to, we'll say, the first episode of the 50s broadcast of WandaVision, which is like a day after, Monica gets sucked in. Scarlet Witch broke into the facility where they were keeping Vision's corpse after the events of Infinity War, which we can assume his corpse was there for 5 years through the events of Infinity War and Endgame. He also states that in Vision's living will was that he would not try to be revived or regenerated.
Yeah.
I thought was interesting.
They said he didn't want to be anyone's weapon.
Didn't want to be anyone.
And obviously,
the question
was
why was he in that
on making
facility?
him into a weapon. Like they were obviously trying to figure out.
It's like, why was he there? Why did they keep his body for 5 years unless they were trying to tinker with him and figure out how he worked?
Right.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that his body didn't go to the remnants of the Avengers after Endgame or after Infinity War. Like that's quite shocking to me. So something took me.
Sokovia Accords are still a thing. They don't have any authority or any jurisdiction to.
Right, but in the 5 years between Infinity War and Endgame, the world's governments were in shambles. Like, who was really paying attention when half of the Earth's population vanished? Right? I think Steve would have picked up Vision's body and if he had to walked
Steve
it back.
Wasn't around. Steve's gone.
No, but during the 5 years before the events of Endgame.
About in the 5 years.
Even during those 5 years, he wasn't avenging anymore, right?
But he still existed. This is his friend's body that the government has confiscated.
I'm just talking about taking it back with them because it's Avengers stuff, right? If Black Panther had died on the battlefield and not gotten snapped, they would have carried his body back to Wakanda, right? I'm thinking, my brain goes, the Avengers would have taken Vision's corpse, brought it back to the compound, and that's where he would be resting. His body.
And so my counter to that is that in Civil War, we've established, rules of what superheroes can and can't do. And I know that they broke those rules because there's a big world-threatening event. But after that's over, they still have to stick to the accords that they all signed. And so, they don't have the power to keep the body.
Steve never signed it. The Avengers who survived, the only ones who signed it were Rhodes. I think it was only Rhodey.
We have to go through that, but they still don't have the power, and maybe they got pardoned for helping out during the events of Infinity War or something, but I still don't see them having the power to keep the body. That's my thought. This
will be my hill that I die on. I don't think anybody paid attention to the accords in those 5 years.
We're 40 minutes in. We will do that on a debate club in the future. We will debate, who got to keep Vision's body or reasons why.
We've talked about
what is next then?
Next is the Maximoff anomaly, and so we're back in the sitcom, and Vision is at work, and he's set them up with internet for the first time, right? And they're like, "Oh, sweet, we got sweet internet. Oh, look, we got an electronic mail. I have a letter opener." He's like, "No, we're already cutting edge," which I love that line, by the way.
Yeah, the jokes are just so bad, but so great.
They're so good. And he ends up intercepting an email from Sword, from Darcy, and everyone reads it in unison, super creepy, talking about the Maximoff anomaly. And he's like, what the heck is going on? And then Norm, who's next to him, is being super weird. And so so Vision taps into his brain and pulls him out of the fictional world, the fictional character that Wanda has forced him into, and he's freaking the fuck out. And he's just like, oh my God, how long have I been in here? I need to call my dad or my sister. My dad's in the hospital or something like that. Like he's freaking out because his real life has been taken from him. And he's like, she's in my head, man. And he's freaking out so much that like Vision has to put him back under. Or he's trying to get answers from him. He can't because the guy's just so freaked out. And I think that it puts into really quickly you realize just kind of how messed up this is for the people that are actually stuck in here, and why they need to get this to stop as soon as possible. And Vision is horrified by it. Meanwhile, we see Wanda back at home with the twins, and they're like, where's Dad? She's like, oh, he's at work. And like, why is he at work? It's Saturday. She's like, no, it's Monday. And like they're like, no, like they know what day it is. And she's trying to, they're seemingly immune to like her reality warping and mind control effects. Like they see through all of her stuff. She can't put them to sleep, which I think interesting.
Is more evidence for the theory that they are complete constructs of hers made flesh.
Yes, because she doesn't have the same level of control.
She isn't affected by her own stuff. It's
Well, the other thought though is that perhaps they have similar powers.
That they inherited some of Wanda's abilities,
right?
And thus are immune to them.
I mean, that's what I think that's also what I'm saying.
Okay, well, it's just I think it's just a question of semantics of whether like the twins are real or constructs,
right?
Like,
if
they left
constructed by
they still exist.
Perhaps. Like they were constructed by her powers, made flesh, versus like they aren't beings in the sense of like cellular division and gestation in pregnancy, because Vision can't do that. Like that's not a way that it works. I still I am in the camp that if they were to pull them out of the hex, they wouldn't become like wooden dolls. Like they are real creatures just created by one of the most powerful beings. But because she created them, not transmuting them from a 2000s drone to a 50s helicopter, because she created them out of like clay, that's why they're like, nope, we know everything we are a part of you.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting scene there. There's just so much. There's so much. We only got like 15 minutes left, and we still got like a good amount to go through here. So we're gonna kind of zoom through because we got to get through this. So we have all that happen, and then while that's happening, earlier Monica figured out like, what if we send something through that doesn't need to change? So they use an old drone from the 80s that is 80s tech, so that it doesn't have, so that the hex doesn't say like you're not the right time period, and they're able to actually get something through and communicate with Wanda. Pretty ingenious, and I don't know that the logic quite works, but cool. I'm glad they figured it out. Just in that, like, I think it's less that it's an anomaly in the time and more of a I'm going to. I know you're after me, and I'm going to disable you, and that's just kind of how it takes effect. That's just, but that's a quibble, and I have nothing to back that up on. But they get to talk to her, she gets pissed off, really pissed off, and she takes down the drone, and then steps out of the hex, and we see her in her Avengers outfit. We hear her use her normal voice. And she just chucks the giant drone at them. She's like, "Did you lose something?" And she's scary when she's like, "Everybody needs to leave me the fuck alone." Like I'm not dealing with y'all. This is my space now, and they're trying to get through to her. The director's like, "Everybody, put your guns on her," because he's an idiot. It's not like he could do anything to her. Like, dude, you're like that. You're doing nothing but pissing her off. Monica's the only one that's handling it the way it should be handled.
Like, I said, if it's common knowledge she almost killed Thanos,
Right.
like Darcy and Jimmy are talking about it, how is he underestimating her by just thinking he can point guns at her?
Yeah.
What?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And Monica, of course, is the one with the level head trying to like de-escalate. Says, you were in my mind. You know that I am not here to hurt you. You know, only one that seems to be able to even somewhat get through to her. But she's like, you know, you have to let these people go. Like you've taken away agency from an entire town of people.
Right.
Come on, Wanda. Like, this is not you. I love this scene.
Yeah.
Yes.
This was very intense.
Yeah.
And engrossing, I thought.
Yeah. But then the other thing that happens, which I love, and I think it's another intentional nod, is when she just goes like this, and then all the guns point at the threat.
At the director. Yeah.
And it is straight out of the original X-Men movie.
I was going to say that.
Magneto.
It was my first thought watching this.
Which is Wanda's father in the comics. But we don't know if that will be her father once the world, you know.
As of right now, her parent, they think her parents are somebody and somebody Maximoff. Like they did their name out of their father.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that's her father in the original comics. I think things are still kind of in flux with her background because of all the legal stuff between Marvel and Fox. I don't remember if they've officially reinstated Magneto as her father in the comics yet.
Yeah,
but I'm sure it's on the way.
Don't read comics. What we've seen happen since the introduction of the MCU, the characters that they have not had control over in the films, they changed it to sever the ties to them. In the comics, the way that they would relate, just so those other, I would assume it was so those other franchises wouldn't get a bump from being connected to the MCU characters within the comics.
That was the thing they were doing at the time. They were distancing Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch from the X-Men franchise. They were putting their history into question and saying Magneto's not really the father. The High Evolutionary has revealed their true history and all this kind of stuff. But now that Disney owns both Marvel and Fox, I'm assuming a lot of the old history is going to be restored.
I think so too. So that scene I called the Sokovian standoff, and then we break for commercial. And this is an interesting one. Lady spills some red Kool-Aid, which is an interesting visual because it reminds you of blood. And clean it up with Lagos paper towels for when you when you make a mess but didn't mean to.
I was like,
so on the nose, right, Thomas?
Oh man, no, I loved it, but I was like, can we be any more on the nose? We're starting to lose like all subtlety.
Yeah.
Right? Like Stark toaster with a little Iron Man beep. Okay. Strucker watch. Like those things, even if you watched the movie, I think the Strucker watch might have gone over your head. If like all you did was watch the movie, you know, when it came out. But this one, like, you can't miss it. You cannot miss and it literally is just the word Lagos on the screen. There's not even like a disclaimer, like nothing. It is just Wanda losing it. It is just Wanda losing control.
And it seems to be a pattern that the commercials are all things she'd rather forget. Like none of that stuff is represented in her show. She shunts it out to the commercials, right? All of the things that remind her of her at her worst,
right?
You know what her being a fanatic against Tony Stark and Stark Industries, working with Strucker, the mistake at Lagos. Like those are the things that she doesn't want to remember.
We're forgetting the Hydra commercial.
Hydra commercial, right? Yeah, there's all the shit in her life that she doesn't want to remember, which is very interesting.
We never put it out, but apparently one of my favorite Easter eggs so far is apparently the wallpaper in one of the editions of the house is just straight up the bunker in Sokovia.
Really?
You gotta like pop and look. I think it's the magician. I think it's the second episode. If you look at the wallpaper, you can literally just see the Sokovian castle. Like it's just that's the wallpaper.
Oh wow, I have to check
Yeah.
that out. And I got to go do another rewatch. So next scene, we already talked about it a fair bit, so I'll just describe it real quick, and then we'll move on to the more important scene, which is scene 8. Scene 7, someone called PETA, justice for Sparky, hashtag justice for Sparky. Sparky is dead. Wanda and the boys happen upon who else but Agnes, holding the dog. Agnes is like, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I was going to, bring the dog to you. I found him here in my azalea bushes. He ate the azaleas and died. And the kid and the boys are upset, and they have this instinct to age up again. And they look at each other like, all right. And Wanda recognizes like that's what they do when they are about to age. And she's like, no, 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 no. And gives them this whole spiel about how, like, we have to accept it. We can't just run away from it, which is funny because it's kind of exactly what she's doing with this construct world. And
you can't. Like, you can't reverse death.
Right? You can do anything. You can reverse death. So just bring them back then. And she's like, no. Right? And she's like, no. Like we can't do that. We can't bring people back from the death. I don't know if they look at their distinction because Vision is technically not human; he's a synthezoid, which they actually say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the third time they've said synthezoid now.
Yeah, which is great. But yeah, it's weird because it feels like she's being very hypocritical. Maybe she doesn't want them to be like her. It's like a do as I say, not as I do thing, which is very typical of parents.
It's also, this is what I was talking about with this meta moment of like we use TV to teach lessons, particularly these kinds of shows, and it's these kinds of lessons we teach. So I think you do watch Elizabeth Olsen as act very well that struggle of Wanda knowing that in order to stay within the trope that she's given herself, she has to say these things to her kids fully with the full knowledge that she is not and will not do what she is saying.
Right.
And so that's why I think that's one of the those most powerful moments. And then actually one of my favorite moments of the show is when Vision shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And even after the introduction of the dog and the stuff at work, still treats these kids like because I think he's like totally out of it, like
he's pissed, right? And he's just we know this from the next scene, but he's pissed. But in that moment, he's like, my boys need comfort.
Right. There's something about the hypercomputer that is his brain knows that this still is important, and I don't think he's under Wanda's control anymore.
Yeah.
No, he's definitely fighting it, which we will see in the next scene as well.
If he ever was. Yeah, so let's talk about the next scene then.
Yeah. Let's just okay. So next scene, right? They get home, get the boys down. Vision standing at the sink, and he's like, so Norm, I released his mind from your control. Like basically he's like, I know what you're doing. I don't know exactly why or how, but I know that you're controlling people here. What is going on? Why are you doing this? They get into this big fight. She's like, I don't want to talk about this right now. I'm tired. And he's like, and she's like, we're not talking about this right now. And he's like, no, you don't control me. She's like, don't I? And then credits start rolling.
That was amazing.
And he kind of shuts down for a second. He's kind of like about to back off, and you see him shake it off.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you're not doing this again. You're not doing this. We're going to go watch TV again. No, we're not doing that. And they're arguing, and the credits are still rolling. And it feels like, have you ever seen Too Many Cooks?
No, I have not.
It's this Comedy Central thing where it's all of these. It's like the opening for a show that never starts, but it just keeps happening over and over again. And it keeps going further and further off the rails. And it gets really, really dark. Eventually, and like there's this guy that ends up coming through and killing people, so it doesn't go that far, but in terms of like the people kind of breaking out of the reality of the sitcom while like credits are rolling, it feels like almost a tactile thing that's there where it's trying to like, oh, just wrap it up, and he refuses it, and it's so messed up. And they're screaming at each other. He he goes into like battle position, starts flying. She starts flying. It felt very what you do in the shadows. You ever see that movie?
Yeah.
It felt like that. Like,
yeah. What I thought was really interesting about battle position is that it's still like they are on rigging.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the way either of them fly in the films.
Mm-hmm.
It's still like
style.
Gotta be, well, it's just like, it's more like stage theater where like the physical harness is there and you've got to have that positioning so that you don't tip back and forth. Like having flown people, I know that like you literally have to do that Peter Pan thing so that you stay upright. It's part of, you know, the thing. And so that's a moment where even though he's fighting back, he still is playing. They're both still playing in the rules of the world that Wanda has set down. They haven't fully broken out of it, even though like now we're seeing Wanda's magic.
Yes, and I hate to cut you short, but we have like 3 minutes left because there's so many other things. There's so much happening in these last few minutes. We got to get through it all. So yes, all of that. But then they calm down a bit, and then she's like, I didn't start this. I don't know how this started, but you know, so that's very interesting too. Eric, I'll kick this part to you. Do you think she's behind it? Do you think she was lying to him in that moment? Or do you think that she doesn't know how this hex started? Because it's obvious that she has control over what's happening in here, but is she behind it?
I don't know, actually, at this point, because like in the last few episodes, I was totally on board with your theory, Maui, that Wanda had created this world and she was completely in control of it. That this was like a traumatic reaction to Vision's death. But there were a lot of hints in this one that there is some other force possibly outside of her. Her words in that scene and just the way Agnes has been behaving, like it does seem like there may be an unseen puppet master.
Mm-hmm. Now, if that is true, and I see Thomas having some gears turning and some things connecting, I have a theory from this episode. I'm going to kick it to you, Thomas. What do you think is going on?
I'm going to go back into my House of M bag, and it's Quicksilver. Quicksilver is the mastermind. Because in House of M, it is, so in House of M, they find out that it was Quicksilver who, like, told Wanda that the Avengers were coming to, like, try and, because they didn't want to, like, in the comic, they didn't want to, like, kill her. They just wanted to, like, talk to her and find out what was going on. But Quicksilver was like, they're trying to end you. They're trying to hurt our family. Like, you've got to do something. And he really manipulated her into creating the world that is House of M. And if we are to believe Wanda, and I do, that she didn't start this and she didn't make the doorbell ring, you know, where she's like, I didn't do that. And she's like, you don't believe me, but I didn't do it. And then it's Quicksilver. I think maybe now we're getting the thing where the person who's like, okay, now I got to get my hands dirty because Vision, the one person who could really wreck this, is getting too close. I've now got to step in and fix it.
I think that's an interesting thought. I'm wondering how this remnant from another universe got into our MCU, and so what you just said is a part of my theory.
Okay.
The rest of my theory is that, and since we also know this connects directly to Multiverse of Madness, what if we're not done with Dormammu? What if Dormammu needs a way to escape the loop that he's caught in? You know, the little pocket universe is created by this like time loop that Strange created in the events of Doctor Strange. And somehow he's able to siphon strength from Wanda, and so somehow he set this up. That's like, I'm thinking of who is on the table already that could do this, because otherwise, they have to bring in somebody new, and we're so far into this series already. If they bring in some new antagonist at this point, I have no connection to that person. Why would I care?
Sure.
So it doesn't make sense.
Dormammu was free. I thought the deal was that if he didn't like come through, Doctor Strange would let him out.
Yeah, I thought that was how it had ended. That was
I'm pretty sure.
the time loop was going to keep happening unless Dormammu backed off and didn't destroy the Earth.
Right, but he's still stuck in his dimension.
Oh, it's still stuck in the dark dimension.
Right, I'm sorry. I mislabeled it as the time loop. He's still stuck in the dimension that he was trying to break out of to begin with, right? To wreak havoc.
You're not the first person that I've seen with that theory. I've seen a couple other things online of people talking about Dormammu.
Right. So he's still trying to escape, theoretically, right?
That's his only goal, is to take the power that he has over the dark dimension and spread it to every dimension. Like, that's Dormammu's singular goal.
And maybe somehow this hex is a way for him to siphon power throughout through this universe, right? The power he needs to break out of the dark dimension and unleash his power across the rest of the universe, nay, the multiverse.
I think that's a solid way to think of it, because if we think of the first big arc of the first, first three phases, 4 phases. This is phase 4.
This is phase 4 right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first 3 phases are the Infinity Saga, right? And that's a big, like, comic arc.
Mm-hmm.
What's like another big comic arc? Multiverse and Secret Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Like a massive arc with so many little stories to tell that include House of M, Avengers vs. X-Men, Phoenix Force. Like, it's all involved. Like, that was all happening while Secret Wars was coming to a head. And we know we're getting Secret Wars in terms
of Disney TV.
Right? So, like, I think maybe that may be our next, like, 2-3 phase goal.
Mm-hmm.
Is like the true clashing of them.
Yeah. It's insane how much is happening here. It's crazy how much is happening here. Like, so much happens in this episode. And then, of course, that leads us into that final scene where Quicksilver shows up, and that is the episode. Not a lot of time. Thomas, give us your rating on this episode.
All right. So real quickly, based on because I keep saying, does the episode stand on its own? And unfortunately, it doesn't, because of the big reveal. Like, you have to know who Evan Peters is in relationship to all of Marvel properties for that to mean anything to you. So until then, the episode flows really nicely from the last episode. But again, like, if you don't know who that is, you're like, I don't get it. And I think a lot of people who aren't big comic book movie fans could have missed Days of Future Past. I know I did for a while. I slept on Days of Future Past for a long time. So for me, it's going to be like a a solid 4, maybe like a 3.9, because it's definitely below episode 4, but still higher than episode 3, because now we're jumping back and forth between the real world and the Hex, and we get to see Darcy and Jimmy and Monica, and they've got, great stuff.
Okay. Eric, what do you think?
I think I'm sort of with Thomas on this, that, like, I enjoyed episode 4 more, just because it was so different from anything that had come previously, and it gave us a lot of the answers we had been craving. And so I just found it a lot more satisfying to watch than this one. This one, like, this was a good episode, especially watching Wanda step beyond the veil, and then, of course, the Quicksilver reveal at the end. But again, this kind of left me wanting more and, like, being very confused again, as opposed to feeling like I'm getting the answers. So I would give this maybe like a 4.4, 4.5, somewhere in there.
Okay, so still pretty high, but
but like, there were things that I enjoyed more than the one previous to this.
So I'm definitely the highest on this episode, I think. This was my favorite episode so far, and I'm realizing that I'm running into a problem where this truly is just a really big movie, and so And I also think that every episode is kind of building off of what came before in a really great and inventive way. I do agree. Like Kate's been watching it with me week to week, but she hasn't, and she's watched all the MCU movies, but she hasn't watched any of the Fox stuff. So I don't know that that's going to hit so hard, right? Because I'm pretty sure she's never seen Days of Future Past or what's the
Apocalypse
other
was
Apocalypse.
the other one.
Yeah, is he? I haven't seen Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, I think he was in Dark Phoenix as well.
I think he's in it for.
He didn't have as big.
I don't think he's really major to the plot, but I think he's definitely in it, right?
I don't remember. Dark Phoenix wasn't that great a movie, so I don't really recall.
Like $5 at the half price bookstore. I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah. So. Yeah, but even with that part, that ending part, the rest of the episode, I think, answers a ton of questions, but then gives you a whole new set of questions. It's like, all right, here's a lot of information. We're giving you a ton of information in this episode, but all that information is going to open up a whole slew of more questions. Like, wait, but if this is true, then what the F is going on?
Which I think is good storytelling. I think what WandaVision is doing for how people watch TV, it's teaching us so much about like the Netflix and binge problem.
Right.
Like people aren't used to watching television with cliffhangers anymore because you the next episode.
Is what I grew up on.
Yeah.
Which is what television was for the history of television until streaming services.
Right.
Right? You had to wait a week, you know?
Yeah.
You had to be there at 8:00 when it came on to find out who shot JR.
Right.
Do you think
this is like, who killed Laura Palmer? This is what happened to Oceanic flight. Don't tell me A-15.
Yeah.
Great. Right.
I had to go through the memory banks there. Right. So it's
going back to
it's appointment television again. Right.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to watch it on a specific time, just on the day. Just watch it today at some point, right? So you can talk with all your friends and family about it, which is great. But like I said, like for me, like this is just getting better and better and better and better. So for me, I'm giving this. This is pushing up. This is 4.8. This is a fantastic. 40 minutes of television. It's the longest episode they've done yet as well. And they pack a ton into this episode. Because with that extra 10 minutes, which has usually been around 30, the extra 10 minutes, they put a ton in this episode. And I cannot wait to see what happens next. Thomas, where can people find you?
I am T-Squiz42 on the Instagrams and the tweets.
All right. Eric, where can people find you?
I am Eric Lindbergh on Facebook or through the Reflect Media page.
And I can be found at Mr. Maui Jones on Instagram and at Maui Thoughts on Twitter and at all the Reflect Media pages. Also, be sure if you are around, check out Thomas and myself. In about 50 minutes, we'll be doing a reading of the 2014 film Godzilla over on Zooming the Movies. Kevin Pollak's Zooming the Movies. Should be fun. And next weekend, check out Eric in his first Zooming the Movies. It's opposite. I do it all the time. You got to find the other way. He will be doing his first Zooming the Movies in the lead role as the Dread Pirate Roberts in the first Zooming the Movies that I'm actually hosting. It will be The Princess Bride. You can see me as the narrator / the grandfather. So very excited for that. And with that, we're all done here. See you next week. Bye-bye.